Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Craig Monk, and I'm Provost and Vice President Academic at MacEwan University. I'm very pleased to welcome you all to the Betty Andrews Theatre. I'd like to begin by thanking our renowned Faculty of Fine Arts and Communications for hosting this event. Greetings to our speakers who are here in person, and for everyone joining us virtually, I wish you were all here. The future of the music industry is a topic in which MacEwan University is invested, as so too am I. I've seen our faculty, students, and graduates all contribute to creative solutions during the pandemic, work that will be important for rebuilding a creative arts sector after COVID. The music industry speaks to my own passions. I've often said that my favorite job, outside of this one of course, was as a record store clerk in the 1980s. Working for the late Sam Snyderman in music retail helped me pay for my undergraduate education, but it was also intellectually and creatively stimulating. Today, I'm a supporter of our own Bent River Records label, an interdisciplinary lab where students collaborate with artists and faculty members on real-world projects. We have seen the music industry go through significant changes and challenges even before the pandemic, of course, and I marvel to see how art and the business of art is constantly reinventing itself. I'm very interested to hear about the experiences of our speakers here today, and of course from learning from their expertise. Please join me in thanking the RBC Foundation, RBC Emerging Artist Project, and RBC Future Launch for supporting the development of artists during this uncertain time, and for highlighting the role of the arts in building vibrant communities and strong economies. And finally, thank you to the Ensemble for bringing their digital learning series to MacEwan University for today's student-led conversation. Thank you.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. And thank you, panelists, so much for making yourselves available. I'm sure you have much busier schedules than we do. And so I'm super grateful that you were willing to make the time. Just a quick reminder to everybody, just especially in-house here, about the Q&A for those of you who have questions, just to have them kind of ready. But with that, we'll get started. So Brett, the first question's for you. Sure. How difficult was it, going through, we've all kind of been through a pretty interesting year with COVID, year and change. How difficult was it to navigate performances and musical expression during that time, being, virtual, but also being on a much larger scale that way?
Well, I mean, there's the initial shock of everything going on. You have all of these plans, and as you reach a certain level in your career, you're not just planning days, weeks, months in advance, but years in advance. So it was a true trickle-down effect. It was like a domino effect, basically, where when the world shut down in March of 2020, we didn't know what that meant for the rest of the year. We didn't know what that meant into 2021. And so trying to navigate your schedule was one of the most difficult things, because in the middle of that was also the reality that we have to focus on our bottom line. It's a business, and it became a really big business for us. So we have all of these people and team members and staff members and employees that we now have to be thinking about to say, if we're not on the road, if we're not playing shows, if we're not getting revenue this way, what are we going to do? So it was a massive business that ended overnight for us and so many of my friends in the business. So how did we navigate through it? Well, other than the initial shock, I mean, kind of like cowboys do and cowgirls do, you dust yourself off and you try to get back up on the horse and try to figure it out. And what we did is we had an innovative idea for Canada, at least. It's not my idea. We saw Keith Urban do it in Nashville for the Vanderbilt Health Center, as well as an artist do it in Latvia, I believe, where they played a drive-in concert to vehicles. So as social distancing was the most important thing and we needed to keep everybody separate, well, as an artist, we need to bring everybody together. That's our job. We've done that for hundreds of years. So we had the idea for Canada, and with Jackie Ray, who, as you know, I was saying is such a dear friend, we decided that we're going to do a drive-in concert. So we partnered with great partners in Edmonton. We were able to bring people together. Alberta and the government of Canada allowed 200 vehicles, and however many people could fit in that vehicle, I guess. We kind of kept it to 5, 200 vehicles, 5 people, 1,000 people. But we ended up doing 8 sold-out shows over 2 days. So in June of 2020, when everybody was still trying to figure out what was going on, we actually found a solution and found a different road to take to still bring people together and get our music out, but actually let music do what it's always supposed to do, and that's bring people together in tough times.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that response. And I heard from Jackie earlier that you got nominated for 4 CCMA awards. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So I'll hand it off to Kessler for a question from online.
All right. Well, I would also like to echo what P said, thanking our virtual guests and our in-person guests for making the time today for this. Your expertise is valuable, and I think it's great to connect you with all the students here today. I would also like to remind everyone that, especially those watching at home, that there will be a QA at the end, and a moderator will be joining the chat box in the venue platform. So you can put your questions, and we'll get to them at the end during the Q&A time. So, Margaret, I would like to start with you for our virtual questions. So as part of this series, the Ensemble's volume 15, What's Next in Music, you sat down last time with Kezia Myers and Nicole Pratt to talk about the role of music publishers in the industry. So I want to ask you, kind of building off maybe what Brett was talking about there with things related to the pandemic, where do you see new roles and jobs coming from the music sector over the next 3 to 5 years? And are managers and publishers the new power leaders?
Thanks for the question, and thanks for the invite today. Just for everybody in the audience, publishing is the best kept secret in the music industry. A lot of people in the music industry don't know about it. And just to bring everybody on the same page, my members, music publishers, are the business and creative partner of songwriters. So not the artist, but the songwriter. And often the songwriter is not the artist you see on stage. And that's a misconception that's out there, even within the music industry and the Canadian industry. Our members also work with composers, and what happens on screen in film and television and in gaming, which is the new frontier on placing songs in games, is the place we're moving to. Our focus is on the song. And that song is still heard on radio. It's heard on streaming services. It's heard in film, television, apps, and games. And we're really interested in emerging songwriters, but we're also really interested in those old songs. A song can be 50 years old and recorded with a new life. And you'll hear it in your favorite movie that you're watching on Netflix tomorrow. We've been spending a lot of time talking about the future of work in music publishing, in music generally, but with music publishing as our focus. We know we're going to have a really new type of diverse group of workers. We want that diversity. But we also want to be recruiting people with new skills, because our companies and our songwriters are competing globally. It's not just a Canadian industry anymore. And things are getting increasingly complex. So we got to make sure that songwriters and composers and publishers are getting paid. So for my companies, always at the heart, we'll always have creative people in those companies. But we're also starting to invest in tech, in data management, and new jobs are being created. When you graduate in 3 to 4 years, the job that you take may not even exist now. And so you need to be very open-minded about where you're going and where the industry is going. We're increasingly needing people in technical jobs. We're making sure there's lawyers who are making sure the right contracts are being signed. There's data management people who are focusing on making sure micropayments are being made. We're dealing with billions of streams. And so we're making sure that our companies and the companies that they work with are changing to accommodate that huge volume. And we want to be making sure that we have the right placement of people and that we're recruiting new people and training people in a different way going forward. So it's a really interesting conversation and one that's only just started.
Fair enough. Thank you, Margaret, for that answer. And sounds like there's lots of exciting stuff on the horizon. I would like to pass it back to Peace now for another question for our live speakers.
Cool. Thanks, Kessler. So the next question is for you,
Oh,
Jackie
no.
Ray Greening.
Okay.
So Jackie, having worked in radio for as long as you have, what have been the major improvements in the development of that medium since the beginning of your career until now?
Oh, computers. When I started in radio 40 years ago, it was a midnight to 6 shift. And in those days, radio was live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, because you had to be there to push the button to start the commercial or the song or whatever. So, not many positions you can start at a radio station now in the midnight shift because it's computerized now, or voice track now in the overnight shift. So that would be one of the big ones, that you lost an entry level position. But it also changed musically, because if you think back in the day, well, we'd have to start, Marty Robbins, El Paso, was 4 minutes, 20 seconds long. And I worked the midnight shift, and there was a spiral staircase down to the washroom in the basement. So I'd always play El Paso to go to the washroom. Nowadays, the songs are a little longer, but back in those days, they were 2-minute or 3-minute songs. So musically now, a music director can now, for example, let's use CFCW, my station. We would never play 2 pop country songs back to back, like never, because we are a more traditional country station. You might hear 2 traditional songs back to back, but you'll never hear 2 rocky, poppy country songs back, because that's not what we are. But you can put these rule trees in now, computer-wise, that just takes you on a really nice flow through the day with a radio station. That wasn't there before. You can really massage your music list now really easily with the help of a computer. So thank goodness the one thing the computer can't do, though, is talk yet. So I still have a job, which is important. And I still think that computers has been the biggest change to our industry, for sure.
Well, that's awesome. And yeah, thank goodness. Kessler, I'll hand it back to you.
All right. Yeah. So I will direct our next question over to Tracy. So there we've been talking a little bit about some of the technology aspects of the music business. So I'd like to kind of get your view on the managing and investment side. And I want to hear what your thoughts are on how managing an investment in the music business is different maybe than sports, film, or technology specifically.
Wow. I mean, listen, that's first of all, hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for the invite. Brett, congratulations on your nominations. It's insane. I'm seeing it happening in real time here. So congratulations. It's such an interesting question, but the truth is it's really the product that's the differentiator in all of those verticals. So putting tech aside for a second, they have so many similarities. Success in sports, film, and music all really require incredible talent that will touch the consumer. And they also require a team of talent behind the scenes to elevate that star, whether it's an artist, a band, a team, an athlete, a film, or the actual actors. So as far as the tech side of it goes, if you work in any of those verticals that I just mentioned, and you're not invested in tech, you're going to really have a tough time succeeding. My team has offices in LA, Nashville, and Toronto. And operationally, we are really a well-oiled machine that's connected all day long, which I know sounds like low-hanging fruit, but that's because of tech. And it really, really matters from an operational perspective. And then on the other side, understanding these platforms and using them to amplify our artists' voices is right now our #1 priority. And those platforms evolve and change every single day and have become, especially, as Brett talked about, because of COVID, the only way our artists are connecting with the fans here in Canada right now. So all of that to say that tech goes hand in hand with every single piece of the entertainment business. It's attached to everything you do, ticketing, fan growth, marketing, digital music platforms for fans to hear an artist, watch a game, stream a series, and, the list goes on. So if you invest in tech, you have to invest in it very early in your career, intellectually and financially. And, you know, the truth is, in my world, our company gets to play in all of these spaces: sports, film, TV, and tech. We have artists on the roster that, you know, have anthems in with major sports teams and organizations like the CFL. And we have artists that, you know, have incredible acting chops, so they get to play parts in films and television. So all of these industries actually intersect, and it's so much fun. So you don't have to choose which one to go into. You'll always be attached to tech, but you can go into any of them and touch all of them.
Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. That's yeah, very interesting stuff, and I appreciate that broad view of all of those issues. I'm going to hand it back over to Peace now for another question from our in-person guests.
Awesome. So this next question is for you, Brett. How do you make and continue making connections within the industry? Does your management team do that, or do you personally go out of your way to like connect with artists, or is it a bit of both?
That's a really good question. And for me, I'm very, very proud to be the type of artist that whether you succeed or you fail, I know that I put my best foot forward. And so whenever I attracted a management team or an agency or a record label, my theory was that they were going to be an additional source of help, but not the driving force and not the vehicle and not the star on the team to make things happen. So a preconceived notion that once you get a record deal or once you get a manager, oh, good, I can just relax now. No, BS. That's not going to happen. Actually, you have to work twice as hard, because now you've got a bigger team around you, and now you have an opportunity to multiply your efforts. So every connection that I've ever made at the very beginning just came from me. I mean, my family, and we would go, you'd meet Jackie Ray or you'd meet Tracy, who was the president of Country Music Television, CMT, for many years. And you just have to have those connections, the opportunity to go shake hands. How are you doing? Here's my music. What do you think? Let's grab a drink. But I wasn't old enough, so let's go have lunch. Let's have a coffee. You know, one of those things. Now, you graduate to another level because of those connections. Now you're lucky. Now you have a manager who has a lot of other contacts that you never had, or is able to now double your efforts. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do, but my manager is going to help and divide and conquer. Now you're lucky because the manager may help you find an agent. Or now the agent sees that, okay, if so-and-so manager is with you, I know I met you 5 years ago, but you must be serious. So now you've got your agent. Now you've got 3 major players on your team. And you're still the artist. You are still the captain of your own ship. And no one's coming to save you. This is your career. So now you've got your agent, your manager, and now you can go and maybe attract a record label. And now the 3 of you walk in and you go for this big pitch to the record label. And with the record label comes a marketing manager, a publicist, a VP of A&R, and now you've got this massive team. But guess who the captain still is? It's still the artist. And so there's a lot of circumstances that can happen from time to time where an artist is truly created by the label. To me, in my experience, that's often just the artists that are maybe discovered on a TV show who don't really know exactly who they are, but the manager, the agent, the record label say, you can be this, here's your box, now go play. But that's very, very seldom. In this day and age, and in the day and age of previous generations of country music, and actually all genres, it's the artist first who is the driving force, and you have everybody else around you to be the support system. And I think those are the most successful cases. The billionaires like George Strait, like Dolly Parton, like Kanye, like Jay-Z, Beyonce. Don't think for a second that their manager is making the decisions. It's Beyonce.
That's awesome. Thanks. Much appreciated. Kessler, I'll hand it back to you again.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I would like to direct another question to Margaret. So with Music Publishers Canada, I know that part of what you do is support Canadian music and Canadian compositions and composers and publishers and so on. But I'm wondering, with the rise of streaming services and streaming platforms, and that's been even more so with the pandemic, is that task of supporting Canadian music more difficult, or are there any advantages maybe to it?
It's complicated. It's a very good question. It's one where I spend a lot of my time talking to government. I talk to them about making sure there's the best support structure in place for our songwriters and music publishers and composers. And, let's be frank, there's a lot of opportunity with these new platforms, but it's sometimes really hard to get discovered on those platforms unless you have the right team. As control moves outside of Canada, you can't just walk into the radio station and have Brett meet Jackie in this new world where these global companies are operating platforms. That being said, I'm optimistic. I'm seeing a lot of opportunity for placing songs around the world. We're seeing more and more songwriters who are not the artists working all around the world and having their songs heard on these new platforms, from Korean K-pop to Denmark. For our members, they've completely changed how they've done business with and how they are working with their writers. 20 years ago, only about 25% of their revenue for songwriters and publishers was coming from the rest of the world. When we looked at that again 2 years ago, 79% of the revenue is coming from foreign territories back into Canada. And that's really exciting. There's billions of streams, and if we can make sure each one of those are counted and all those micropayments are put together from all over the world, there's a lot of opportunity there too.
Yeah, wow, thank you, Margaret. And that's very interesting about the change in income statistics. I'll pass it back over to Peace for another question to our in-person students.
Awesome. Hi, Jackie.
Hello, Peace.
Another question for you, and I'm actually very curious. Working in the country music industry, do you ever find that your skills play a part in other genres in the professional music world?
Ooh, that's a great question, because I've always been a kind of a country bumpkin. I grew up listening to CFCW, and every radio station I worked at before I got there, they were all country. That was what I loved. Obviously, we're owned by Stingray Music now, so I do have to be aware of it all, but I'm really, when it comes down to it, I'm probably the last country girl standing in this country that just looks at country music, and I just love it. I wake up in the morning, I listen to it, I listen to the streaming, I listen to new albums, I have to suffer and listen to what Kissel sends me. But yeah, I've been kind of lucky that I've just, for 40 years, I've just been doing what I love and listening to the music I love. So I'm a very, very lucky girl.
That's awesome. Hey, that makes you not a jack of all trades, master of none. So you're a master of country music. That's awesome. Thanks so much for your response. Kessler, back to you.
Awesome. And actually, I have another question for Margaret here. So we were talking about like supporting Canadian music in and outside of Canada, which, yeah, there's some interesting things there related to streaming services. But I'm wondering, with recorded music revenues that are just a percentage of artists' income, when you also have publishing, producing, management, finance, marketing, touring, many more, so many different revenue avenues. We've seen some landmark deals recently with the catalogs of Neil Young, Bob Dylan, some other very big, high-profile things. So where do you see opportunities growing for music in the next 3 to 5 years for artists and creators more generally?
Well, I want to start with a shout out to Brett, because I like your theme of being the captain. Often artists and songwriters who don't retain that role, even if they have a full team doing everything, if you don't understand where the money's come from, that is where things fall apart. And so I think that is a key thing for everybody to maintain, regardless of the technology. But I'm thrilled that people are talking about music publishing and these big deals. There are a lot of equity funds, pension funds, new people coming in with a sudden interest in music publishing. a lot of those big deals you're seeing are, they're unique. They're about legacy writers who are in estate planning tax laws in the US. So they're very specific to a number of really high profile songwriters and artists. We need to look at the broader industry, and we need to be looking at not just those old songs, but also the opportunities for emerging songwriters. And it's really interesting right now what COVID did. In a way, I think it was it leveled a playing field in terms of co-write. So one of the most important things my members do creatively is work with their songwriters to get them in song camps and co-writes in Nashville and around the world. And initially when COVID hit, there was songwriters who did not want to do this virtually and they couldn't get into the studio. But there's others who did, and I've seen companies really take advantage of this. You now don't have to pay for the travel. Smaller and emerging songwriters and their publishers can take advantage of them. And where a publisher may have sent a writer to write twice a year in a camp, they're now having those writers write every day with the right setup in their home studio. So I think this is going to, we'll always want to creatively be back in the studio, but I think it's really interesting to look at what the good things of COVID have emerged in terms of competitiveness of the smallest fighting companies and their writers.
Yeah, totally. Thank you. I appreciate that insightful answer. I'll pass it back to Peace now for another one.
Cool, thanks. So the next question is for you, Brett, again. So let's say someone doesn't write their own songs. How would they go about reaching out to songwriters that write for others? And how successful can they be doing that?
Well, it's okay. I'll put it to you this way. There's maybe two different categories of artists. A new artist who wants to cut, which means record outside material. If you want to record outside material, I was one of those artists. I love to write songs, but I always had a theory after watching a lot of my heroes that the best song wins. And as an artist and entertainer, I want the opportunity to have these great songs to play on stage, to collect more revenue so my agent could book me for more gigs because I've got a hit on CFCW. So whether I wrote it or I didn't write it, it didn't matter to me. Now there's a lot of artists that are like that, but a lot are very, very true to this is who I am, this is what I do, I will write, and that's that. So if you're an artist that you want to acquire some of these songs, it's truly just about connections. So how do you develop that connection? Well, it's often with a publisher. A publisher is the company in the house, as you guys know, that have 8 staff songwriters, maybe 80 staff songwriters if you're Sony or Warner Chappell or Universal Music Publishing. It could be more. So you talk to somebody there and say, I am so-and-so, I've got a new album coming out and I'm excited to cut outside material. That is music to a publisher's ears because the publisher has all these writers that the publisher employs. And the published songwriters, if they're not writing with Thomas Rhett that day, or if they're not writing with Carrie Underwood that day, well, they're writing with each other. These are writers that you've never heard of. I've never heard of, but they're talented and they write Grammy Award-winning songs like twice a year. Like, oh my God, these are amazing writers. Well, they write 200 songs a year, but Thomas Rhett can only record 10. So what are all of these, I call sloppy seconds, going to be? These second place songs that fall through the cracks. So for me, I always wanted to acquire some of these songs that just never saw the light of day, or by accident, Tim McGraw or George Strait passed on. So as an up-and-coming artist, I was actually very lucky to access some of these songs. Why? Because I asked. And a lot of other writers coming up through the ranks or artists coming up through the ranks are doing the exact same thing. And sometimes a consumer just listening on Spotify or Apple Music doesn't care that so-and-so didn't write it. They just know that the song's a hit and they love it, and the agent books them another gig and life goes on. Then you get to this big, big level, like George Strait or Toby Keith, or now Carrie Underwood or other major, major artists. Even if they didn't write the song, they have so much clout and such a giant name that they will tell young songwriter, or they will tell established songwriters, you're going to come to my house for a week. You're going to write songs for my new album. I need a couple up-tempo. I need a couple slow songs, maybe a real traditional song, and something about the beach. And now they come in a writing camp, like Margaret was explaining, but the writing camp is at George Strait's ranch in San Antonio, and then they write songs for George, to which George says, because I'm going to cut it, and because it'll probably be a #1, and it's probably going to make you $2 million worth of revenue, I want 25%. And if you don't like it, that's fine. I'll just hire another songwriter to come in and take your place. It's not that crass. He creates his own group and community, but that does happen on a regular basis in Nashville for the elite hierarchy. I'm just not there at that level. I'm probably not going to be at that level, but that does happen.
That's a great perspective on songwriting, and thanks for the eye-opener. Kessler?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so I would like to now get back to Tracy, because I think it's super cool, especially for the students here, to see 4 people from very different parts of the industry here. And so Tracy, I think you bring a very valuable insight here. And so I'd like to give you just a very open question. What are the most exciting parts of your job?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of exciting things about my job, but I would say the thing that excites me most and always really has is building. So at every point in my career, I've had a career that has spanned from being a broadcaster. You know, I was attached to, as Brett said, country music television, MTV, Much Music. And in my latest role, I was over at the Canadian Country Music Association. But at every point in my career, music has always touched what I've done. And the thing that I love the most about my job is elevating. And, you know, when Brett and Margaret both talked about, you know, you being sort of the artist being sort of the head of their career. We call that, you know, we always say that the artist is the CEO of their career, and the things that we sort of put around them are the things that the things that we do to elevate the artist are the things that are the building blocks and the bricks and mortar to get them there. That's the thing that I have always been extremely passionate about. You know, when I was at the CCMAs, I got to do that for an entire genre, figure out ways that we could elevate country music in Canada and internationally and the artists within it. Or in my new role now, where I'm really laser focused on building international career artists. And I've always loved creating and looking for really, really unique opportunities, whether it's with, you know, the things we talked about earlier within sports or tech or film or TV or Peloton, or, you know, there's so many opportunities now, but taking, you know, elevate that song or the artist and then figuring out how to monetize it. That's a big piece of what we do. And the thing that excites me the most. So the sweet spot of where the art meets the commerce, that really is my, you know, my favorite place to be at. And I get to do that every single day. And I'm very, very grateful.
Awesome. I love that. The sweet spot where the art meets the commerce. All right. I'll send it back over to Peace then.
Thanks, Kessler. So this question is again for you, Brett. How do you pick members of your band? Is it more of like a practical selection process, you know, maybe based on skills or talent level, or is it more of, or is there room, I should say, for, you know, the sentimentality of just playing with old friends?
Yeah, awesome question. Before I get into that, I also want to compliment Tracy, who at the beginning, her career and what she's done and what she's been able to do is nothing short of extraordinary. Now that she's in the management game, everybody who's lucky enough to have her as a manager is just watch overnight, just boom, instantly successful. So she says she gets to do that every day, and she loves that. She's very, very freaking good at what she gets to do.
But does she know her house is on fire? Look behind her.
In the background, yeah. So Jackie has known me for many, many years, as has Tracy. And I've been through a few different versions of my personal band, but it's always been one of the most extraordinary parts of the business is creating the camaraderie in the community that is your band. This is your team. These are your brothers and your sisters. This is your true family, who in fact, and this has been many years of a 10, 20-year career that I've been lucky enough to have, I've spent more time with my road family than my real family. So who you choose often isn't about the level of talent, although I'm very proud that I believe that they are the most talented, but they're the best suited for the job and they're the best suited for the family. So if you become a member of my band, I almost don't care how well you play. I care about how well you fit in with us. If you're going to be with us for 200 days out of the year, or it could be when we went on tour in 2018, we were on the road for 300 days. We had 65 days off. So of those 300 days that we were all together, can we be together in this way? And I was so grateful that the team that we have is extraordinary. So the level of talent obviously has to be there. I'm going to put it bluntly. You can't be in a country band and suck. You can't be any band and expect to get anywhere and suck. But if you have this level of talent, this level of commitment, great drive, and especially a great attitude, then all of a sudden you've got something very, very special. And my band is exactly that.
That's awesome. Thank you. So we'll wrap up that section today. Thank you all the panelists and online and in person, and everybody that's tuning in person and online for just all the responses and all the questions. They were awesome. We have people already heading to the mic for in-person questions, and we'll just kick off our Q&A section right now. You guys ready?
Well, as they're making their way down too, I'll kill some time here. That you also notice the artist that doesn't get along with their band because you see them come through a lot and they have a different band every time. No artist will be named, but that does happen too, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you know, some of the greatest talents, like I've said, George Strait before, Garth Brooks, Reba, Dolly Parton. These artists have had bands for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, because you truly create a community. It's a great business model, and you know what? If they're happy behind you, you can be happy for the crowd in front of you.
Okay, and we'll go ahead with the first question
how
here.
are you?
Good, thanks. What's your name?
How's everybody doing?
We're good, thank you.
Good. So you had touched a bit on management and having a team, but I'm just wondering, as a smaller artist, like, when was the point where you realized that you should invest in one? Yeah, just because, like, was there a moment where you had so much going on that you're like, I need one now? Or was it like, do they approach you? Can they approach you? Do you approach them? And how does that work?
Great question. And Tracy, you're still on for this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll go first from my perspective really quick, and then I'd like to hear your answer on this. As an artist, I realized that there were a lot of things that I just couldn't do anymore without the additional help. So that additional help had to be somebody that had connections that maybe I didn't. We were aligned with the same values. We had the same goal in mind. So I was very lucky that at the exact same time I was looking, there was also a manager that was looking at me from afar saying, I'm probably going to work with this kid one day. I'm just not exactly sure when. But finally, when we had that one-on-one conversation, we decided, yes, it's time to get into business together. But I believe there's no right answer. So if you want to approach somebody because you believe that they can help you,
yeah.
Well, if they're not able to help you now, because they're just at maybe a level that's just above where you're at right now, they may now keep their eye on you, and you finally have that song, you finally get those followers or the streams and hit their criteria. They're like, I'm ready to bring you along with me. Or at the same time, they could approach you and you could say, yes, everything that you're saying you can offer would be a great help to me in my career. So yes, let's go into business together. But Tracy, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. And it actually isn't that different from the management side. We speak to artists weekly that are at a whole bunch of different levels. Some of them we reach out to that we've got our eye on. Some are coming to us to have the conversation. I think, you know, Brett touched on something earlier, which is about the team. It has to be a fit. Even on the management side, the artists that we work with have to be a fit for what we do. We're a very family-oriented organization, so very similar to Brett in choosing his band and making sure that these are people that, you know, can travel with him. We feel the same way about the artists that we work with. So that's a big piece that might be a differentiator for our management company, but it's very, very important. We have many artists that we are in conversation with that we are helping out. They're not ready for managers yet, and they don't need management yet. They have a lot of work to do. We'll do a lot of advising with artists that we believe have a ton of potential. And, you know, we've also attached ourselves to a couple of artists that we maintain conversations with and now are like, okay, we're ready to go here. Let's get this music out, or let's get a photo shoot done, or whatever the little things are to sort of start to elevate them. So that's a long answer for, you know, it really, really depends on who the humans are, who the artist is, where the artist is in their career, even if they're just starting out or starting to grow, and who attaches to you. Every situation is so different. Yeah, I mean, I hope that explains it a little bit.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to jump in and give a question from our virtual audience here before we get another question from the in-person audience. So back again to Margaret, a publishing question for you. So the question is from our out there audience. How does a music writer get recruited by a music publisher?
So a great question, and very similar to some of the answer you heard from Tracy. First of all, as a songwriter, as soon as you write a song, you are your own publisher. So make sure you understand what that means and try to educate yourself on where the money's coming from. And then when you start talking to music publishers, you've got to understand that there's many different types. Some are only interested in collecting the money and the royalties. Others really are focusing on creative and doing that too. So you need to understand the differences between music publishers in terms of how they see you. They're monitoring the streams, they're watching you, they're talking to other writers. So a really good way of networking is to talk to writers who you know have publishing deals, because that's how you're going to get noticed.
Awesome. Thanks, Margaret.
All right. Our next live question.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Holly. I wanted to say thanks for coming out and doing this for us today. It's been a great opportunity hearing from all of you. It's been really informative. I just wanted to ask, especially with COVID and everything, where do you see yourself going in the future, goal-wise, career-wise? Yeah.
That's it's a good question, but it's an extremely difficult question to answer. I'm going to be as diplomatic and as I possibly can be, and respect the situation and respect the varying opinions on what's going on in the world right now. And for the first time in my life, as someone who usually has an answer for something, I genuinely don't know, because so much of this is out of my hands, is out of our hands. Mm-hmm. When you're dealing with something that is as serious as this and is such a worldwide issue and such a divisive topic, it's very difficult to say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go play a concert tomorrow at Rogers Place, 20,000, let's go. Mm-hmm. Even if you wanted to, and even if maybe the fans wanted to, you can't do that. So where are we going? We had a tour lined up. They were going to play right across Canada, every arena. We've canceled that tour and replanned that tour 5 times. And privately, we were going to announce it like about a week ago, Jackie. It just wasn't the right time. Just nothing about it was the right time. So where are we going? I don't know. How are we going to get there? I don't know. When is this going to end? Shit, I don't know. But I hope it's soon, because we all want to get back together and have some fun, But as of right now, I don't know.
Yeah.
But thank you for asking.
Yeah, no problem.
And making me cry a little bit, because I don't know.
You made him cry. Way to go.
Thanks, Polly.
You're welcome.
Yeah, nice to meet you, though.
Awesome. Well, I've got another virtual question, but this time to an in-person guest, Jackie. So I'm wondering, Jackie, what could be some of the jobs or roles not created yet, but that you foresee being created down the road?
Holy cock-a-doodle-doo, that's a hard question.
That's a big one. Yeah.
Wow, in radio, I love the fact that I just have to talk for a living. Wow, I was made for this job. I think it was it Tracy that was talking earlier? If you're not in the technical world, and it's the same with radio and anything right now. You look at Brett, he was one of the early adopters of social media. What's the award they give out? How many times did you win that award at the CCMAs?
The Interactive Artist of the Year. So it went from Website of the Year, they became interactive because everybody, it's so important to be engaged on social.
Yeah, so a role in the future, I don't know, a robot that'll bring me coffee while I'm on the radio? That'd be nice.
Yeah,
or beer? Yeah. That's a tough question, hey? Brett, you answer it.
It's so hard to answer that because even the thing, like, I was saying earlier, it's like everything changes in the tech every single day. And if you're an artist or you're in management or you're in media, like Jackie is, you have to, TikTok wasn't a thing 3 years ago. Now I spend probably too much time in my day focused on explaining to my artists who are like, what do you need the content? Like, what is the content I'm going to do? Just being like, just get the content done. And, that didn't exist. Like I said, 3 years ago, we now have staff that are 100% devoted just to those platforms. So it's a really, really difficult question to answer because we don't know what doesn't exist yet. And those are the jobs that are the future.
And one thing to add on to Tracy and to Jackie is that it may not be the job of the future. It's just about what the importance of that certain aspect of the career is going to be. And TikTok is the perfect example. Something today that is not that important could be the single most important thing 3 years from now. It could be technology that already exists. It could be something that, just simply isn't that important, that nobody in management or artist or publishing is really focusing on. But that could be the thing of the future. So I think it's important to always keep an open mind and not be turned off to something that is trending in the right direction. When you talk about a team, it's great to have somebody like Tracy who is there as a manager saying, TikTok is so important right now. The same way when I first signed my record deal, Twitter and Facebook. You have to be on Twitter, you have to be on Twitter, you have to be on Twitter. Now I kind of can't stand Twitter and I barely want to spend any time on it. I've doubled down my efforts on Instagram, but it's not that it's a dying platform, but even that platform isn't as important right now as TikTok is. So what's the next thing going to be? We don't know.
I just want to add to that, and Margaret touched on this earlier about, or Brett or Margaret, but I think it's really important. So in the publishing world, and we saw it a lot with our artists through COVID, and who knows what this means, or if it's just an example of, okay, so where is this going to spin off to? There's so many artists that could not get together to write. They just couldn't do it because it was COVID, and we're still dealing with it now in Nashville. We have a lot of artists that are just not wanting to get into rooms because they have young children at home or whatever it is, and have basically pivoted their entire writing career to Zoom writes. What that has meant for some of our artists is they've been able to write with people that they traditionally would never be able to write with because they're either not in the same town, and touring and all of these things to get those schedules to align is really difficult. Now they can do it because they can write from a bus and they can write from another country and they can be connected with technology. This is an example of something that I feel is going to become something bigger. What does that look like? There will be jobs surrounding that. It's just so hard to answer the question because you imagine it and it could exist,
Your career is not going to be a straight line, and just go with that because that's the best way to be at the place where you need to be to get that next great job.
Thanks. I appreciate all of your answers on that. I think there's lots to think about there. I want to pass it back down from the cyberspace to the live space for another live Q&A question.
Awesome. Go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks a lot for all the good answers. And I was wondering if I could direct this question mostly to Margaret and Tracy, but you guys feel free to pitch in if you want, because there's a whole lot of talk about the future in this industry. But if you guys were to throw yourselves 10 years in the past, where did you think you were going to be?
Margaret, you go first. Margaret, you go first.
Well, I was in the book industry, so I came back to the music industry, and you don't know where you're going to be. That was my point to what I said in the last question, and just like embrace your opportunities. And I volunteer a lot. It's just something our family did, and I did it as a kid, and I kept on volunteering, and now I'm involved in music counts. And I'm chair of an organization called Work and Culture, and I was the trainer on my daughter's hockey team. But I met people at the hockey games that I now work with. So there's not one way to move forward in your career. So just go with it.
Yeah. 10 years ago, I want to say that I was at, I think I was at MTV at the time, MTV and Much Music. I will say this, I knew very early on in my career, and I started out as a broadcaster, that I wanted to manage artists, and I knew it that far back. What I realized was that there were a lot of pieces that you actually have to know and understand in order to be a really good artist manager. And what I realized is that in order for me to do that, I needed to get some more things under my belt. And some of that was circumstantial, that I got to move into different roles. But I will tell you this, don't get comfortable in the same role. Once you know what you think you want to do, look at the whole pie and figure out what pieces you need to snap into in order for you to make that final jump. So I'm 48 years old, and I just stepped into artist management 6 months ago. I finally feel like I have all the pieces to be able to actually do the job properly. And I'm still learning a ton. And I've been attached to record labels and artists and broadcasting and content and marketing my entire career. And I'm still learning every single day right now, getting under the hood of this. So all of that to say, I knew I wanted to go into artist management. I didn't know when I was going to be able to do it. I didn't know how I was going to be able to do it from a personal perspective, financial perspective, all of that stuff. But I will say this, y'all have all of the things that we're talking about here, about how fast things are changing every single day and how these platforms are emerging that didn't exist 5 minutes ago and they've become a thing. I think you guys can look at, I think one of my first questions here was, sports or TV and film or music or tech. I think you can, sort of, if you've got a passion for any of those things, definitely point yourself in that direction, but be really, really okay with change for yourself and also with your surroundings, because it's going to happen. Everything's going to change so quickly. And it's exciting.
It's fun. It is.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the years of, we have a lot of people in the, not so much now in the record label business, that when the business changed so quickly, they could not find a way to evolve. And of course, those people slowly started to have to make changes in their career, no longer with the record companies. Those that could evolve have been able to stay on, and obviously new people coming in and all of those things. But I think that's the perfect example of, if you can't change, do not go into the entertainment business. Become an accountant or become a lawyer, or even with lawyers, if you're an entertainment lawyer, you have to be able to evolve. But if you're not the personality type that can embrace change and be okay with change, this is not the business to be in.
Awesome. Thank you both for your answers there. I'm going to throw it back to Peace to finish up our Q&A.
Do we have any more questions in the house?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
Hiding in the shadows. Hey, dude.
You're damn right we do. I'm Jackson, and I guess my question is for, well, as many people as we have time for. And the question is, you all work in, well, I'm assuming you all work in very competitive industries. And my question is, how do you navigate that, and how do you get ahead in that type of space?
Well, work your butt off is number one. That's the only, I think in any position you take, the ones that work their butt off get recognized. And I think that as you move through your career, when Tracy said something, love what you're doing, and that's number one. You got to have a little passion for it, but you also got to be really flexible, as we're saying. But then also just go into the business. How do you say it? You've probably heard that saying so many times, but work your butt off. You can't be lazy anymore. You just can't. People will pass you by.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add to that?
I'll say from the artist perspective, it never pays to step on somebody on the way up. It never pays to try to hold somebody down so that you can get a leg up, for a number of different reasons. And one of the biggest ones is karma. And so even though there are times in my career where I'll be honest, I believe that they were small circumstances, but I regret them. They've always come back to screw me over big time. It never pays. So from those lessons learned early on, or as I just kind of broke in the national level, and I thought that if there's an opportunity for me to do better by having somebody do worse so that there's a bigger change, that is just a foolish perspective to hold. And it's that in any business. So in fact, I've completely changed my mentality, talked with great mentors about this, figured out that, even though I do have a big ego and all that stuff, all that shit is a lie. Don't get caught up in that shit. The biggest thing is actually to help your community around you and help other artists. And I feel that without question that I've been lucky to be even more successful, because if you want to look good, make everyone around you look even better. And it's so special now bringing up an artist, as now I'm a headliner, up onto the stage to perform, because you never know, in a couple of years, they're going to headline too. You never know. There's a case in point, there's an incredible duo called the Reclaws. And after I learned some lessons in like 2013 and 14 about me kind of being a bit of a douchebag, I really loved this band called the Reclaws. And I saw them open for me. They were the first act on in the festival, and I got to headline. It's like 2016 or 17. And I couldn't believe how great their show was. And you know what? I really wanted to do everything that I could to, whenever they had a new song come out, I would post about it. They didn't even know me, but I wanted to post, and I just wanted to show them that I just love these guys, and it was genuine. I genuinely love them. Now we have an opportunity to tour together, write together, perform together. Now they're the cream of the crop in our industry. And now you've got me and my level, them and their level, and we're really good friends. And I really, really like that. It never pays, period, in any business, no matter if it's oil business, cattle business, country music, publishing, management, to shit on somebody. It never pays, never do it. Don't even think about it.
That is really great advice. That will end our Q&A session. Thank you, everybody, for all the amazing questions that were asked. And thank you so much, panelists, for the answers. I'm sure we are all taking quite a bit away from today. I know I am. I'm going to go ahead and invite Dr. Annette Trimbee, President and Vice-Chancellor, to the stage for closing remarks.
Well, thank you. While I'm demasking and washing my hands, please join me in giving our panelists and our students who ask questions a warm round of applause. I have to say it's really exciting for me to be in a room with people. And I just want to thank everybody for showing up in person. I know you're in a class, as well as our virtual guests, our cyber guests. I found this conversation today very, very stimulating. I'm a biologist. I'm not a performer, but I like to think about patterns. And I've learned just a little bit about the music ecosystem, about the art and business of music, about new roles, new jobs, and who knew it, the importance of data management. So, truth be told, right now, navigating these times is kind of new for all of our folks on the panel. So even though some of you are established and some of you are new in the audience, really everybody's kind of new because we've never experienced, at least in our memory, something quite like this pandemic. So Brett, you know, he had to innovate, and I do say I was working with your brother around 2013, 14. He didn't say that about you, actually. He kind of liked you.
It's funny about my brother. I knew that you'd work together, and my brother didn't really care much about my career at all. But then I was invited to sing the anthem for the Oilers, and my brother was the first guy to ask if I got free tickets, and he and I have been buddies ever since.
Yeah, Jameson was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Anyways, you've had to innovate, and there's a little bit of going back to the future, which many of you students were too young to watch that when it first came out, but I think it came out when Brett was a baby. But anyways, this Back to the Future, the idea of drive-in concerts is really, really cool. You know what? As a university president, I often get asked by employers and funders, the people who fund post-secondary, whether MacEwan graduates will be ready for the future of work, for the technological disruptions that are coming our way, that have been coming our way for a time. And I like to remind them, you know, I ask them, where do these disruptions come from? You know what? They actually come from our campuses, right? So campuses are hotbeds of new ideas, technology. And I also like to say that when they ask me if you will be ready for the future work, I ask them if they will be ready for you. Because truth be told, our graduates are ready to lead. Our graduates are ready to innovate, network, find solutions, compete. And as Brett said, competing doesn't mean you step on people, but it means you do your best and you try and get ahead, you try and be different. And when to collaborate, because it sure sounds like it takes an incredible team to do good in the world of art and music these days. So music plays a very important role for all of us. I know I've been listening to a lot more music. I know I've been dancing in my living room, and I've been rediscovering old music, and Nina Simone and Cinnamon and Margaret, you talked about using old music in new movies. You've all had to look for ways to find new audiences. You've had to cope with sudden and dramatic changes. Somebody said, don't be an artist if you don't like change. I might say, don't be an administrator if you don't like change. Truth be told, we all have to like change. I really liked the advice that you got today. The artist is the captain. The artist is the CEO. It's complicated. Follow the money. Know where the money is coming from. I think that's really important. My daughter is an artist, and I have to remind her about the monetizing part of all of that. So I just want to say it's been a blast. This has been a ton of fun. I want to thank everybody again. I want to thank the RBC Foundation, Ensemble companies, today's panelists, moderators, student participants. And I also want to thank the MacEwan Faculty of Fine Arts and Communications for hosting today's events. So everybody have a wonderful evening, and one more round of applause because I know they miss it. Here's to Brett, Jackie, Margaret, Tracy. Thanks all.